Chapter 48. I grew up with sand in my socks and salt on my skin, and the knowledge that when I was old enough to decide where I lived, it would be miles away from the ocean, is one of the few things we had in common. I don't understand why people obsess over living near the sea, you see. When I told you where I was from, I'm a city dweller through and through. So was I, escaping the first chance I had. I love London. Busy, noisy, anonymous. Enough bars that have been kicked out of. One didn't matter. Enough jobs that losing one meant finding another the next day. Enough beds that sliding out of one never left me lonely. If I hadn't met you, I'd still be there. Maybe you would be too. If it hadn't been for Anna, we wouldn't be together. We'd have parted ways after a few weeks onto new pastures, different arms, different bars. I remember the first morning I heard you. You were still sleepy, your hair messed up, and your lips a fraction apart. I lay on my back and I felt the urge to leave, to tiptoe down the stairs with my shoes in my hand and get the hell out of there. Then I thought about unborn child of the stomach I'd once ran my fingers over and now couldn't bear to even touch, taut as a drum, big as a beach ball, anchoring me to this bed, to life, to you. 25 years of marriage, it would be wrong to say I was unhappy for all that time, equally wrong to suggest that I was happy. We coexisted, both trapped in a marriage that convention wouldn't let us leave. We should have been braver, more honest with each other. If one of us had left, we both would have had the lives we wanted. If one of us had left, no one would have blood on their hands. Chapter 49. Murray. What will you do if we find her? Sarah was navigating the sat-nav on her phone, sending them up the M40 past Oxford. She tapped the screen off at Junction 3. Arrest her, Murray said, then remembered he wasn't a warranted officer anymore. He would have to call in reinforcements. Even though you think she was forced into it, that might mitigate the offences, but it doesn't negate them. She still committed fraud, not to mention wasting police time. Do you think they're together? Your guess is as good as mine. Before they set off, Murray had called the wagon and horses and made inquiries about Tom and Caroline Johnson. The descriptions hadn't rung any bells with the landlady, and so coming up themselves had felt like the only option. Would he have done the same had he still been a detective? He might have wanted to. A jolly on the DCI's budget was always a perk, but there would have been more efficient ways of finding out if the Johnsons were in Carlton. In the Elms, he would have put in a request to Derbyshire Constabulary, ask officers to make inquiries, checking their intelligence system, all of which was possible when you were a warranted officer, and none of which could be easily achieved by a retired DC who had already had his knuckles rapped by the superintendent. It's nice to get away, Sarah said. She was gazing out of the window as though she was seeing rolling hills or ocean views, not a motorway service station in the parish tempering hand. She grinned at Murray, like Thelma and Louise, but with less hair. Murray rubbed a hand over his head. Are you saying I'm getting bold? Not at all. You're just follically challenged. You need to stay in the left lane here. Maybe we should do this more often. Track down dead people who aren't really dead. Murray grinned. Take road trips. Sarah was scared of flying, and in the 40 years they had been together, they had only been abroad once to France, where Sarah had had a panic attack on the ferry, hemmed in by cars, waiting for her return to drive off. There were so many beautiful places to see in this country. I'd like that. Another reason to retire properly, Murray thought. If he was at home all the time, they could take us anywhere they wanted to. Whenever Sarah felt up to it, maybe they could buy a motorhome, so she never had to worry about other people. Just the two of them parked up in a pretty campsite somewhere. He would see this job through. He'd never yet given up on a case, and he wasn't going to start now. And then he would hand in his notice. He was ready to go now, and for the first time in a long while, he looked to the future without misgivings. Cotton Elm was a pretty village a few miles south of Burton upon Trent. According to the pile of pamphlets in their room, a nicely finished double on the first floor of the wagon and horses, there were plenty to do within a short drive, but little in the village itself. Murray couldn't imagine it had been the most scintillating of destinations for two young women, although he supposed if he lived in inner city London, the contrast of fresh air and beautiful countryside was a holiday in itself. In the photograph, Caroline and Alicia had looked as though they hadn't had a care in the world. In the recently refurbished bar, the landlady was putting up decorations for the following night's New Year's Eve party. It was lucky you only wanted one night. We're packed out tomorrow. Pass us that blue tack, will you, duck? Sarah obliged. Are there any places to rent in the village? Holiday cottages, you mean? Something more permanent, really. Flats, perhaps, cash in hand, no questions asked, that sort of thing. The landlady looked over her glasses at Sarah. She narrowed her eyes. It's not for us. Murray grinned. He worked with a few detectives whose questioning skills lacked refinement, but Sarah beat them hands down. Oh no, it's not for us. We're looking for some people. The couple you mentioned on the phone? Murray nodded. It's possible they're in the area. If they are, they want to stay out of the spotlight. The landlady gave a snort of laughter that wobbled her ladder. In cotton, everyone knows everyone's business here. If you pair were here, I'd know about it. She took another piece of blue tack from Sarah and stuck a bunch of silver balloons onto her fake beam. Speak to Shifty tonight. He might be able to help. Who? Simon Shiftworth. Shifty suits him better, though. You'll see why people who can't get a council flat gets one of Shifty's. He'll be in around 9. Always is. Sarah looked at Murray. It's a date. They ate in the village other pub, the Black Horse, in order to ask the landlord if he knew of any incomers to the village. He didn't. Murray was surprised to discover he wasn't overly bothered by their lack of progress. In fact, if the entire trip provided to be fruitless, he didn't care. Sarah was looking happier than he'd seen her in months. She had polished off steaks and chips and a treacle tart, along with 2 glasses of wine, and the pair of them had laughed in a way Murray didn't think they'd laughed since they were first got together. A change was good as a rest, they said, and Murray could feel his own spirits lifting as surely as if he'd spent a week in a health spa. If Shifty's not here, we can go to bed, Sarah said as they walked back to wagon and horses. It's still early. I'm not. Murray caught Sarah's wink. Oh, good plan. He hoped Shifty would decide to have a quiet one at home, but as they headed to the bar to get a nightcab to take upstairs, the landlady joked her towards the snug. In there, you can't miss him. Murray and Sarah exchanged a glance. We'll have to see him. But it had been a very long time since Murray had an early night. Sarah suppressed a laugh at his obvious frustration. We've come all this way, they had, and with any luck, the chat with Shifty wouldn't take long. Plenty of time for an early night. The landlady had been right. There was no missing Shifty. In his 60s, he had greasy, yellowed hair pasted across a bald head and thick rimmed glasses so smeared it was a wonder he could see through them. A cold sore wept in the corner of his mouth. He wore pale blue jeans, black trainers with white socks, and a leather jacket cracked at the crease of each elbow. He looks like a private service announcement for pedophiles, whispered Sarah. Murray shot her a look, but Shifty showed him no sign of having heard. He looked up as they approached. Cass says you're looking for someone. 2 people, Tom and Caroline Johnson. Never heard of them, Shifty said, too fast for it to mean anything either way. He looked Murray up and down. Not police, are you? No, Murray said with a clear conscience. Shifty drained his pint glass and set it down deliberately in front of him. Murray knew the score. Can I get you a drink? I thought you never asked. I'd have a pint of black hole. Murray caught the landlady's eye. A pint of black and a whiskey chaser. Shifty nodded. Right, and a couple lined up for later. I'm feeling thirsty. I'll tell you what. Murray opened his mouth. Why don't I give you this? He pulled out 2 20-pound notes and laid them on the bar. From his pocket, he took out photographs of Tom and Caroline Johnson, given to the police after each was reported missing. Can you tell me if you rented a flat to this couple? Shifty pocketed the cash. Why do you want to know? Because they're pretending to be dead. If Shifty had half the nuance he appeared to have, he'd tell them nothing and get on the phone to the Daily Mail. They owe us money, Sarah said. Inspired, Murray wanted to applaud. Shifty was nodding, no doubt reflecting on his own experience of absent debtors. Never seen this bloke. He jabbed the photographs of Tom, but the bird he jabbed at her. She's in one of the bed sits in Swad. Different hair, but definitely her. Goes by the name Angela Grange. Murray could have kissed him. He knew it. Fake suicides. This was huge. He wanted to spin Sarah around, buy champagne, tell the whole pub what they discovered. Great, he said. At least she was so close. She scarped owing me month's rent. Take it out her deposit, Sarah suggested helpfully. Murray tried to help keep a straight face and frowned. Shifty looked at her as though she had suggested. He washed his hair. What deposit? People rent from me because there are no deposit, no contracts, no questions, no carpets. Cass contributed from behind the bar. Fuck off, Shifty said mildly. Could we take a look around the bedsit? Nothing ventured. Murray thought a regular animal would tell him where to go. Shifty on the hand. No skin off mine. Meet you there tomorrow morning. He looked at the full pint and then tumbler of whiskey in front of him. Better make it after lunch. The address Shifty had written down for them was in Squadlycote, 5 miles from Cotton in the Elms, and with none of the later village charm, an array of charity shops and boarded-up premises graced the town's high street, and a motley collection of youth outside Summerfield suggested employment opportunities were limited. Maury and Sarah found Potters Road, and parked outside the block of flats Shifty had described. The building was red brick. Several windows had been covered with metal grills, which had in turn been covered with graffiti. A large yellow penis was sprayed across the front door. Nice place, Sarah said. We should move here. Lovely outlook, Mara agreed. A car of mattresses filled with scrubby garden at the front of the property. In the centre, a charred circle showed where someone had tried to set fire to them. Sarah nodded towards an oncoming car, the only one in the deserted street. Do you think that's him? There was nothing low-key about Shifty's car, a white Lexus with lowered suspension and out-of-proportion wheels. Blue LEDs glowed from behind, a silver mesh grille, and a giant spoiler way down the rear end. Classy. Murray got out. Maybe you should wait in the car. Not a chance. Sarah hopped out and waited for Shifty to emerge from behind the tinted window of the Lexus. The man was a walking cliche. Murray was surprised he hadn't seen a gold medallion glinting between his shirt buttons. No time was wasted on good mornings. Shifty gave them a curt nod and strode past towards the penis adored entrance. The bedseat was Angela Grange, a car Caroline Johnson. Had spent the last 12 months. Was depressing. It was cleaner. Murray suspected that when Caroline had moved in, judging by the filth in the communal stairwell, but the paint was peeling from the walls, and with all windows shut fast, condensation glistened on every wall. Murray nodded at the extra bolts on the inside of the front door. Stand around here, are they? She did that. Someone had the frighteners on her. Did she say that? She didn't have to. She was jumpy as fuck. None of my business. Shifty was wandering around the room, checking for damage. He put open a drawer and picked up a black bra, turning to Murray with a leer. 36 if you're asking. Murray wasn't, but if Shifty was going to make poke around, so was he. Someone had the frighteners on her. Told me it had to be. And if Caroline had skipped town, did that mean he'd find this flat? Murray was finding it hard to keep up. The investigation had pulled from a double suicide to a possible double murder to a fake suicide. Now what? Was Caroline still on the run, or had Tom caught up with her? Was Murray now looking at an abduction? It would be the perfect crime. After all, who's going to look for a dead woman? There wasn't much in the flat. Some clothes, a tuna soup in the cupboard, milk in the fridge. Murray wouldn't risk opening. The bin stank of rotting food. But Murray took the lid off. Regardless, a clutch of blue bottles flew into his face. He picked up a wooden spoon from the draining board and poked around in the rubbish. His mind was working overtime. What if Caroline had faked her own death for financial reasons, but because she was scared? Tom had been blackmailing her, asking her more and more money until Caroline felt the only avenue open to her was to disappear. After all, it had worked for her husband. Murray's attention was caught by the sheaf of paperwork buried beneath a pile of used tea bags. Something about the layout, the logo was familiar, and when he pulled it out, he knew exactly what it was. The question was, why did Caroline have it? As she read through the documents, a piece of the puzzle began to drop into place. He didn't have the whole answer, not yet, but everything was beginning to make sense. Fake suicides were driven by money, yes, sex true, but there was another reason why people wanted to disappear, and it looked as though Murray had just found it.